Hey there, curious minds. Today we're going on a journey through time and space to uncover one of the most captivating and enduring legends in history, the legend of El Dorado. Can you imagine a place overflowing with gold, jewels, and unimaginable riches? This idea has captivated explorers, conquerors, and even pirates for centuries. But how much of this is actually true? Was El Dorado a real city, or just a fantasy that drove many to madness? Stay tuned till the very end, because this story has twists, tragedies, and details that will absolutely amaze you.
It all began in the heart of South America, in the lands we know today as Colombia. This is where the Muisca people lived, a community with a rich cultural and spiritual tradition. In their world, the Guatavita Lagoon wasn't just a physical place, but a sacred site where gods and humans met. According to the stories, when a new ruler called the Zipa was about to take power, a unique and spectacular ceremony took place.
The young chief was covered in honey and gold dust until he was completely gilded. Then, he would board a lavishly decorated raft. The raft, accompanied by priests, would then head towards the center of the lagoon. There, the Zipa would throw gold, emeralds, and other treasures into the water as offerings to the gods. As the first rays of sunlight touched his body, the new ruler would submerge himself in the lagoon, washing away the gold from his skin and offering it to the water spirits.
This ritual was more than just a spectacle. It was a connection between the divine and the earthly. But when the Spanish conquistadors heard about this ceremony, they interpreted it differently. To them, this golden man had to be the king of a city overflowing with riches. This is how the idea of El Dorado was born. A mythical city where gold was so abundant that its streets and temples were decorated with it.
Over time, the idea of El Dorado became detached from just Lake Guatavita. Stories from the natives and the wild imaginations of the Europeans placed this city in various locations across South America. Some searched for it in the Andes Mountains, others in the Amazon rainforest, and a few believed it was near the Orinoco River.
One of the first serious attempts to find its riches was led by Antonio de Sepulveda in the 16th century. He managed to partially drain Lake Guatavita, lowering the water level enough to find gold pieces along the shores. Even though he collected a good amount of treasure, it wasn't enough to fulfill his dreams of wealth, and he died poor and exhausted from his efforts.
Years later, others tried to repeat his feat. In 1911, an English company drained almost the entire lagoon. But they ran into an unexpected problem. A thick layer of mud and silt prevented them from reaching the bottom. The few treasures they found barely covered the cost of the operation.
In 1965, the Colombian government declared the lagoon a historical and cultural heritage site, putting an end to any further attempts to drain it.
A myth that traveled across the continent. Lake Guatavita was the starting point of the legend, but not the only place associated with El Dorado.
In their eagerness to find riches, the conquistadors interrogated the indigenous people about where to find gold.
And although sometimes the natives shared valuable information, other times they invented stories to free themselves from the adventurers' obsession with the myth of El Dorado.
This is how stories about golden cities in remote locations emerged. In Peru, explorers heard about a kingdom called Viru, which would later inspire the name of the country.
In Ecuador, the legend reached the ears of Sebastian de Belalcazar, who ventured through the lands of the Muisca people in search of that golden man who covered his skin in gold.
The Orinoco River also became a key location. Explorers like Diego de Ordaz, Felipe von Hutten, and Antonio de Berrio followed its waters, convinced that it would lead them to the mythical city of Manoa, a supposed metropolis of unimaginable riches.
The tragic fate of Sir Walter Raleigh. One of the most fascinating figures linked to the search for El Dorado was Sir Walter Raleigh, an English privateer with a thirst for glory.
In 1595, Raleigh sailed up the Orinoco River, convinced that he would find Manoa. Although he failed, his obsession with the legend led him to try again years later.
On his second expedition, he sent his son, Wat Raleigh, and his trusted man, Lawrence Keymis, to explore the Orinoco. The adventure ended in tragedy. Wat died in battle, and Keymis, devastated, took his own life.
When Raleigh returned to England, he was accused of disobeying the orders of King James I not to attack the Spanish. He was tried and sentenced to death, paying with his life for his obsession with El Dorado.
The legacy of the legend. Despite the failures, the search for El Dorado left an indelible mark on history and culture. It inspired maps, adventure stories, and even literary works. The famous Muisca raft, a masterpiece of pre-Columbian goldwork, is a tangible reminder of the roots of this legend. But beyond material treasures, El Dorado symbolizes something deeper: humanity's insatiable quest for the unattainable. It's a story of greed, but also of dreams, hope, and the desire to transcend. Reality or myth? So, curious minds, what do you think? Is El Dorado just a legend born of misunderstandings and excessive ambition, or is there some truth to its stories? One thing is for sure, its story will continue to fascinate us for generations to come. And if you're hungry for more, I invite you to watch this other video where we explore the most famous lost cities in the world, personal stories of legends and myths. Click now and dive into another historical enigma. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the past. See you in the next video, and don't forget to leave your comments. Until next time.